We got real quiet. We haven't even called it to order. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our October 3rd, 2023 City Council meeting. It is officially called to order at 8:32 a.m. this morning. As usual, we will start with our prayer and pledges. And we have today with us our chaplain, Ralph Dawkins, to lead us in both, and we're pleased to have him here today. Push the button and see it till the thing goes green.
Till the thing goes green. It went green. Good morning, everybody. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to invoke prayer and your word into this gathering of city officials, leaders, and concerned citizens. Your word declares in Jeremiah 29:11 that you already know the plans that you have for us, plans to prosper us, plans not of evil, and plans that will give us a future and a hope. So we ask your blessings upon the people who have been called to lead our community in a way in which we live and work and play. You are a God of justice, wisdom, and mercy. And so I ask that your character would help them to listen with understanding and goodwill and a sense of fairness with all that come before them. I pray that you'll give them a spirit of service and remind them that they are stewards under your authority. So I pray for the mayor, her staff and assistants, the city council members, the city manager, and every person and department that is instrumental in leading and directing our city. I pray for the police chief and the entire police force, the sheriff's department, that they continue to protect and serve the residents of our city. I pray for the fire chief and the fire department and all first responders who serve our city. And lastly, I pray for continued economic prosperity and safety for all of our city. May you draw in and attract to our city and community, industry, businesses, and corporations that will produce jobs and revenue that will help it to grow and prosper. In Jesus' name I pray. Let us all say amen. Let's do the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor
the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you.
We have three proclamations this morning, and we will start with the proclamation of October the 2nd, 2023 is World Habitat Day and Affordable Housing Day. Is it the two of you?
Well, it's not our item, it's Pam's. She's not here today. But
So you'll take it on?
We'll take it on.
Okay, perfect. On Monday, October the 2nd, 2023, Habitat for Humanity of San Angelo joined with partners around the world in raising awareness, educating, and mobilizing individuals and communities to act on the current global housing crisis. Habitat for Humanity of San Angelo joins our partners to rededicate ourselves to recognizing the basic right of everyone to adequate shelter. We ask everyone to join us as one global network in communicating the message that every one of us deserves the opportunity for a better future. A decent place to live can remove barriers to opportunity, health, and success for growing families now and for generations to come. Habitat for Humanity began in 1976 as a grassroots effort on a community farm in southern Georgia. The Christian Housing Organization has since become a leading global nonprofit, working in more than 1,300 communities throughout the U.S. and in more than 7 countries. Families and individuals in need of a hand up partner with Habitat for Humanity to build or improve a place they can call home. Habitat homeowners help build their home alongside volunteers and pay an affordable mortgage. Everyone can help families achieve the strength, stability, and self-reliance they need to build better lives for themselves. Locally, Habitat for Humanity of San Angelo, Galilee Community Development Corporation, and the City of San Angelo stand together to help ensure we can all provide affordable housing throughout our community. Through shelter, we empower. Therefore, I, Mayor Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim Monday, October the 2nd, 2023 as World Habitat Day and Affordable Housing Day in San Angelo, Texas, and call this observance to the attention of all our citizens. Who would like to speak?
I'll take a picture of that.
Perfect.
Good morning, everyone. The rep for the Habitat of Humanity is not here this morning, so you're stuck with me. I do want to say that affordable housing is really a challenge and a problem across the nation, if not across the world. Having affordable housing takes a lot of hard work. It takes partnerships between the government, nonprofits, and the private sector. And with that, I think with the partnerships, we'll be able to come up with some solutions, hopefully solve that problem. On behalf of the Affordable Housing Coalition, if you will, I want to thank the Mayor and Council for this proclamation, for this very important issue. Thank you.
Galilee CDC is excited to partner with the city and Habitat for Humanity to provide affordable housing in different ways. So we know this community needs more affordable housing, and we are trying to come up with good ways and different ways to provide that for them. So we're excited to continue to do that. Hi, Pam, come on up. And Habitat is a big part of that, so we appreciate them.
Pam, would you like to offer some words?
Two seconds.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Gunter and distinguished council people. Sorry I'm late. I live a long ways from here, so actually out at the lake, but it feels like a really long ways. I just want to thank Stephanie and Bob Solis for being here this morning and honoring us and making sure that everybody remembers that it's very important to have a safe, affordable home to go home to. And everybody deserves that. And that's why Habitat exists. The City of San Angelo, Stephanie at Galilee, that's why it's so important to them is to have very affordable housing and to make sure that that everybody has a chance to make that happen. So I want to thank you all this morning, thank the mayor, thank the councilman for this proclamation and for everybody to remember that it's important for your kids to be able to go home to a safe, affordable home. Thank you. Absolutely.
Our next proclamation is for Fire Prevention Week, so those in the audience here for this proclamation, please come forward. The City of San Angelo is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting our community. Fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and homes are the locations where people are at the greatest risk from fire. Fire departments in the United States responded to 338,000 home fires in 2021, resulting in more than 2,800 deaths, according to the National Fire Protection Association. Cooking is the leading cause of home fires in the United States. Unattended cooking is a leading factor of most kitchen fires, causing nearly 31% of all home fires between 2014 and 2018. Residents should turn pot handles toward the back of the stove, keep a lid nearby when cooking, maintain a 3-foot kid-free zone around cooking appliances, and always set a timer as a reminder. Those who have planned and practiced a home fire escape plan are better prepared and more likely to survive a fire. Working smart smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in a home by almost half. San Angelo's first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and fire-related injuries through fire prevention education. San Angelo residents are responsive to public education measures and are able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. The 2023 Fire Prevention Week theme, Cooking Safety, starts with you. Pay attention to fire prevention, serves to remind us to stay alert and use caution when cooking to reduce the risk of kitchen fires. Now, therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim October the 8th through October the 14th, 2023 as Fire Prevention Week in San Angelo, Texas, and urge all citizens to check their kitchens for fire hazards, use safe cooking practices, and support the many public safety activities and efforts of San Angelo's fire and emergency services.
Hello, I'm Billy Clemens. I'm the City Fire Marshal. Mayor Gunter, thank you for the reading of the proclamation. Thank you, council members, for allowing us to be here this morning. Again, kitchen safety is a very important item. This year's theme hits that topic very well. I want to also thank my staff for their diligence in preventing fires, going out and then educating the public on what to do in case of a situation where they need the fire department. I promise we're going to continue to do our very best to get out there into the public and actually educate the public on the prevention of fire safety. And again, thank you very much for allowing us to be here this morning.
Do we have folks for the United Way here today? Welcome in. How are you? Good to see you, Ashley. Hope happens here. The mission of the United Way of the Concho Valley is to provide the means by which a cross-section of our community may join in a community-wide effort to provide and deliver health and human service programs which address current community needs in a collective and collaborative manner. In 2022, more than 78,000 local Concho Valley residents benefited from the United Way of the Concho Valley contributions through social service agencies that provide emergency food and shelter, day and after-school programs for children, mental health services, substance use treatment and prevention, services for victims of child abuse and domestic violence, and many other social services. The objective of the United Way of the Concho Valley is to assist in the expansion or the development of service programs, promote preventive activities, and foster cooperation among local, state, and national agencies serving the community. The United Way is ready to assist all individuals with whatever needs may arise in the City of San Angelo. The City of San Angelo supports the United Way of the Concho Valley, and we ask that you do the same. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize and applaud United Way of the Concho Valley for its achievement and positive determination to make a difference in our community.
Well, thank you all for this morning. Thank you to Mayor Gunter and the City Council, and of course the City of San Angelo. The United Way is 98 years old this year, and so we have been able to provide impact and provide service for this community as well as our surrounding communities for over 98 years. Just like that 78,000 number, 48,000 of those impacted were right here in the City of San Angelo. And the only way that we can do the work that we do is with our community partners, and then this community, the generosity, the support, the volunteers. Everyone who comes forward each and every year for the United Way, we are truly, truly grateful that we get to do what we do, and we get to do that. It's because of you. So thank you all so much.
We will now move into the public comment section of the agenda. Issues or concerns not on the regular agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, address all comments to the dais, begin by stating their name and address or single-member district number, and limit their remarks to less than 3 minutes. Do we have individuals in the audience today who would like to come forward and add some public comment? Seeing none, I would like to just make this comment. Lucy Gonzalez reminded me to remind everyone that the meter maid or gentlemen are out issuing tickets based off of overstaying in a parking space. So our parking limitations are 3 hours. And if your car is in the same location for over 3 hours, you could get a ticket. So be very aware that the meter person is out there issuing tickets. So thank you very much. We will move into the consent agenda. Larry, is there anything you'd like to pull from the consent agenda? Item G. Karen?
No, ma'am.
Harry?
Item F.
F. Tom?
Nothing to pull.
Tommy? With that, may I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda with the exception of items F and G?
Mayor,
Yes, Lucy?
I have nothing to pull either.
Oh, thank you. I forgot you're on camera. Thank you, dear, for speaking up.
Thank you.
A little FOMO out there.
Yeah. All right, so we have a motion by Larry. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second by Tommy. Any public comment on the consent agenda items with the exception of F and G? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0, or the consent agenda passes 7-0 with the exception of F and G. Item F is consider approving a contract with the San Angelo Museum of Fine Arts, SAMFA, allocating $50,000 of hotel occupancy tax hot receipts for eligible activities and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute all related documents. Harry?
My question is this the time that we should be really allocating money to an entity that is really not open and does not have an executive director? I think the museum does a great job, but they're closed right now because they're doing renovations on the roof. They do not have an executive director. I wonder if we should push this for a few months until they've got some of those things resolved.
I will add comment to that. Number one, obviously, there is a roof that has created damage. The roof is almost complete. They are open in the Fort Concho Stables facility, so people still have a place to go and look at the exhibits. They might not have an executive director, but they have a president and they have an acting executive director at this point in time. So I see no reason to put a hold on a project or a business based off of the comments just made. They actually have more visitors who come in and put people in beds in this city than any other nonprofit organization. We can't stop that. The On Player Air event is the end of this month, October, and they bring in people from all over the United States to attend that event. And so that's in October. They're here, they're open, and they are working like crazy to ensure that our cultural district and the Museum of Fine Arts moves forward. So I strongly support giving them the $50,000 of hot tax money.
Mayor, that's why I brought it up, so that you could make that comment.
You're such a sweetheart, Harry. That's why I like you. All right, with that,
I move to approve.
there's a motion to approve, a second by Tom. Any public comment? Seeing none, we will take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Item G, second reading and public hearing of an ordinance deleting the juvenile curfew from Chapter 8, Article 8.07, Division 2 of the Code of Ordinances. And Larry, you asked to pull this, so would you like to make some comments?
Yes, I understand that in passing this ordinance, we're essentially tidying up the paperwork. We should have an ordinance that agrees with state law. Be that as it may, we need to seriously take a look at this state law and whether we want this to continue. I believe it's atrocious what they're doing. It's a legislative overreach of the worst kind. If the state can dictate how we in San Angelo control juvenile behavior, then the state can do virtually anything it wants to hamper our self-government. Next, the state law does nothing to reduce crime. In fact, this law virtually guarantees a raise in crime rates in San Angelo. This legislation effectively ties the hands of our police department in preventing crime. If this law is allowed to stand, it restricts our law enforcement to solely investigating crime rather than preventing it. It is unimaginable that anyone in this community objects to a reasonable curfew in many cases. In many cases, a curfew frequently prevents our citizens from becoming victims of crime. Furthermore, it protects our youth in giving them and their parents well-outlined behavioral expectations. In other words, curfews help to keep juveniles from committing crimes and suffering the repercussions of being arrested. It is not a stretch to believe that if House Bill 1819 continues in place, it will result in significant, if not extraordinary, increases in neighborhood crime. Lives will be lost and lives will be destroyed.
Thank you, Larry, for those comments. I think that we as a council support those comments and are very concerned about removing that curfew. It doesn't seem to be the right thing to do, but it is state law, and we have no authority to enforce a law that the state has mandated over all of our cities. So, but thank you for those comments. Well said. Thank you. All right, with that, may I have a motion for approval?
Reluctantly, I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? There's a second. A nod of the head. I accept that nod. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, we will take a vote. All those in favor of approving item G, say aye.
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 Sounds like we got a tie here. So it won't, I would vote nay and support the other nays, except it won't make a difference because the state law, these two did not say yay. These three did. So I'm going to join these three in my vote to make it 4-2. But Lucy, how did you want to vote?
I would go with nay.
A nay. So it's now
Yes, ma'am.
4-3, and I'm going to support the approval of it simply because vetoing it and not supporting it doesn't get us anywhere. Is that correct, Teresa?
That is correct, Mayor. If we leave it in the books, it's just going to cause confusion with our citizens as to whether or not we have a curfew, and if we ever did write a citation under it, it would be immediately dismissed by a court.
So with that, it passes 4-3.
And we can say barely passes.
Barely
Reluctantly,
passes.
barely passes. Great
Reluctantly,
speech, Larry.
don't support it, don't
Everybody
like
hates
it, wish it would go away and
House
go
Bill
back.
1819. Can
Yeah.
we pick on Drew for that?
You can.
All right, we'll call Drew.
All right, with that, that does complete our our consent agenda, so we will move into the regular agenda. Comments regarding items on the regular agenda may be made by the public when each item is discussed as outlined above. Applicants, proponents, and appellants are exempt from the time limit above and instead must limit their remarks to less than 5 minutes. So item A is an update on the city-endorsed Service Line Warranties of America, SLWA program. And Bob, you're on.
Good morning. Council requested an update on the service line warranty program that began in January 2015. As a reminder, the city entered into an agreement with Service Line Warranties of America to allow the use of the city's name and logo on letterhead and marketing materials to be sent to residential property owners across the city at no cost to us. In return, the company provides royalty fees based on a percentage of local sales, and which has totaled to $142,000, a little over $142,000 since 2016, which has helped us assist 81 homeowners with emergency repair programs. Anyway, we have, let me introduce Ali Tomasic. She's an associate account manager at SLWA, who's here to provide you an update.
Hi, my name is Ali Tomasic. Thank you all for having us here today. I also have my colleague, Steve Baranowski, here as well. So as Bob mentioned, we had began the partnership with San Angelo in 2015. Some of you may be quite familiar with the program, some of you may not be, but we are the only service line program that is endorsed by the National League of Cities. Of course, this program is offered at no cost to the city. So the nature of the program is really designed to help address the public policy issue of aging infrastructure. We provide the residents of San Angelo with protection for their external water lines and their external sewer lines. What we had found is that a lot of times residents are unaware of their responsibility for these lines, so we seek to educate them on their responsibility. We do so by providing a letter to residents that are not currently enrolled. This letter would be distributed periodically. I do also have a copy of the letter that I will leave here with Bob. This would be what the envelope looks like, and then it's followed by some educational material on their responsibilities for the lines, and followed by the option to enroll in the optional coverages. It is not on city letterhead. The envelope.
The second page.
The second page has a dual logo. It has the City of San Angelo's logo as well as the logo for the service line.
There's where the confusion lies, is because it's on City of San Angelo letterhead or the City of San Angelo logos at the top. So people believe that it's a City of San Angelo program, and it also makes them believe that the city isn't taking care of the problems with the sewer septic coverage or the water well line coverage. I'm not sure we can't take it away, but we need to be clear that having the city letterhead on that does not mean the City of San Angelo is selling this program and receiving the income from this program.
Understood.
Hi, Mayor. If
Yes.
I can jump in real quick, I just wanted to add, there's lots of ways we can do that. Yeah, our goal is to avoid that confusion. So we apologize if there is any confusion from the residents and they reach out to you. So whenever a letter goes out, we can do something on social media. We can do something on the website, just as a reminder to the residents, hey, these letters will be hitting the mailbox. This is a separate program that SLWA manages. If you have any questions, reach out to them, something along those lines. So there's definitely options for us to do that, and we're happy to do whatever we can.
Teresa, you want to go through the legal aspects of this? In other words, we are working with them as a city to allow citizens to make a decision about this insurance, basically a policy that they have signed up. Would you just go through it very specifically in terms of the city's connection to this and the city's role in this program?
Yeah, Bob might be able to do that a little better because I do believe we get some funding from this program. But basically, we are telling our citizens by putting our logo on that document that this is a program that the city is receiving funding from and that we are authorizing to be sold in our city. So there could be other insurance companies or warranty companies who would warrant those lines that are the citizen's responsibility, that are not associated with us. We wouldn't receive any benefit from that, but this, because our logo's on there, we do receive benefit. That same concern, this program came out around 2015, that time across the state, and I know that was a concern statewide about city attorneys and mayors and city managers that city logos were going to be on it, but I think that ultimately what has happened is that people have some assurance that this is a program that's dependable because we do have some control over it.
Okay, go ahead.
So just to break down what the program actually covers, there are coverages for both the sewer, external sewer line and the external water line. And these coverages are pretty much identical with each other in that they both cover where the homeowner becomes responsible for the line. Both of these coverages cover up to $8,500 per repair, and that is on an incidence basis, so there is no annual limit. There's also no deductible or service fee at all that could, potentially deter a resident from filing a claim. And as of today, the sewer coverage starts at $6.58 per month, and the water line is at $4.58 per month.
Can you pick one or the other, or do you have to do both?
You don't have to do both. It could be, optional for one or the other. So just to give you an update of the program as it sits today in San Angelo, currently there are 2,005 active policies, and that covers about 1,275 customers. So about 3.5% of homeowners are enrolled in this coverage. And to date, we've completed just over 1,100 repairs in San Angelo. That saved customers a little over $1.1 million. And I put a timeline in here for you. It was just in April of 2023 that we reached that $1 million mark. So wanted to also provide you a breakdown of each of the policies here. So for the water service line, there's just over 1,000 policies. We've serviced about 389 claims thus far, saving residents just under $300,000. For the sewer line, there's about 944 policies, almost double the amount of claims at 731, and we've saved residents $827,000 for the sewer line.
Why is there such a big difference between the two number of claims?
Typically, like age of pipes or.
So it just depends on the individual, how the water and sewer line, while they're probably the same age, it just depends. Your neighbor could have a completely different, could flip-flop where there'll be, a higher average cost for the water line instead of the sewer line. But, typically with the sewer line, recently, since COVID, essentially, when residents have been home more often, there's been more use. So that's why it kind of drives those numbers and claims an average job cost up.
Go ahead.
And customer satisfaction really is what we pride ourselves in and driving force behind everything we do. So we're currently at a 4.8 overall score in San Angelo out of 5 stars. And I put some recent testimonials up here. I've also shared this PowerPoint slide with you all today, so you're able to take a look. These are the addresses that they're associated with. So we've had some really good reviews and work being done here. And just wanted to switch over to some ways that we're giving back to the community as well.
Thanks, Allie. So the Home Serve Cares Foundation is something that we take seriously with the throughout the company and partners throughout the United States. So the main thing I like to talk about is caring for people and caring for vets. So with the caring for people, I like to bring up every time we speak to a partner, because this is something that it's good to keep in the back of your mind. This would be if a resident has an issue that pops up and they're not currently a customer. But whatever the issue is, it really will put them in a tough position. Either the resident or the city on the resident's behalf can go onto the Home Serve Care website and apply for coverage. We'll work with a local contractor for no cost to the homeowner to fix whatever the issue is. I do like to point out, it does not need to be water and sewer line specific. If there's a problem with the electric at the house, we can cover that too. So it's just good to keep in mind, if you hear that one of your residents may be on a fixed income, that something tragic happens and they're really in a tough position, please let us know and we'll be happy to help out any way we can. Then the caring for vets. If you know of any veteran that might be looking to get in some type of trade, let us know and we can help put them in touch with a local contractor, whether it be a plumber, electrician, either for employment or some type of apprenticeship. So another thing just to keep in the back of your mind, if you catch word that veterans looking to get in the trade, please let us know and we'll be able to help them however we can. And then lastly, one thing we wanted to point out was a newer program. Since residents have done so well in saving money throughout the partnership, one thing that partners have been asking us, on the flip side, we can fix whatever the issue is, but a lot of times residents will still have that high water bill, water or sewer bill that they have to take care of. So we came up right at the beginning of 2020, right before COVID, so the worst possible time you can create something new. We purchased a serve line where it helps protect residents for those high water bills, but it also protects the city itself instead of having to write off the bad water debt or having to work with residents to come up with some type of payment plan. We would pay the overage to the city, and the residents would pay whatever their average. So if it's a $500 water bill and they typically pay $50 a month, they would pay that $50, and we would pay the $450 directly to the city so that they can credit the account for the residents. So again, it's just something we wanted to let you know about. It is a newer offering. It was late last year, beginning this year, the city of El Paso adopted ServeLine, and it's starting to spread out west. It started in Tennessee, but we're seeing more and more cities throughout the United States interested. So again, we just wanted to let you know if there's any interest, please let Allie know, and we'll definitely have that conversation.
All right, that's all I had. Thank you, guys.
The question most citizens would want to know is this on their water bill, or do they receive a separate invoice to you as a company? How is this processed?
Just to clarify, for ServeLine, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So there's
for the whole program.
Oh, for the whole program. So for the NLC program that's currently in place, a resident, when they sign up, they become our customer. The billing, everything is through us. It's not through the city at all. They get a welcome packet with the terms and conditions, everything that they signed up for, if they need to file a claim, all that important information. And then ServeLine, it's completely separate than this current program we have in place. There's a couple different ways to implement it. There is the option to do on the water bill. It's usually about $1 a month for water sewer coverage, but the city can also just include it in rate and make it a benefit to the residents. So those are kind of the two ways for ServeLine to be implemented.
Does council have questions or comments? Larry?
Concerning the use of the city seal, is there a possibility you could put a disclaimer on there, essentially saying, although the city of San Angelo recommends this service, that they do not, in fact, I'd say strongly recommend the service, but they do not endorse it, or some wording like that?
Yeah, so we could put a message in the content of the letter to specifically call out, this program is recommended, or however you would like to word it.
I would recommend we have the city attorney come up with the language if you want some addition to it versus us making up the language. So we should
Yeah.
ensure that
Yeah,
we
that's
stand behind what is written.
Yes, ma'am.
typically, anytime we're going to send out a campaign letter, we will provide it to you for your review and approval. So any changes that you would like to make, you'll have the option to do so, and we can kind of go back and forth and make sure it's really what you would like to see in the letter.
Other questions? Yes, Tommy?
How often do you make this available? Now that we've had this conversation today, I'm going to guess there's maybe some interest generated. So how will you follow this conversation up? And then how often, just in general, do you make this available?
So the program has been available since the agreement began in 2015. The letters would go out anywhere from 1 to 3 times a year, but there are a couple other ways that residents could have awareness of the program. So typically we recommend that partners place something on their website. Also, if you have any form of social media, we would provide any content that you would like to publish. So we could do that, even if you had like a newsletter or something that you would like to, publish this information. And then residents can enroll at any point by visiting our website. So they'll just type in their zip code and it'll pull up the program that's specific to San Angelo. So that way, if you do have things on social media or online, they'll just be able to visit the website to enroll. It also has a phone number as well if they would like to call in.
That may be something we would want to consider since we've had the conversation today, is make it available now. We have, I think we touch nearly all the social media platforms, so that would be also something the city attorney would need to be involved in, just to make sure all the verbiage and disclaimers are appropriate and as needed. So I would suggest maybe you talk to our public information office before you leave here today, there in the back there, and work with them on getting the word out, because it obviously works just based on the numbers that you've presented here of the folks that have it. It pays something. So just a thought.
Lucy, do you have any comment you'd like to add?
Yes, ma'am. My question is for Bob. And he had mentioned that we had, since 2016, we had gotten close to $143,000. And I just wanted the constituents to know, what is it that what do we do with that income?
Yeah, the funds that we get, the fees we get, the royalty fees is what we get from the company. We put them into our emergency housing support program, and we provide typically sewer line, water line replacement for low-income individuals. They can't afford the insurance, and we also use it for other emergency programs. The things like electrical support. Just basically, it's on. It's funding that's relatively open that we can use for any of our emergency program trades and all the things that we do out there.
Thank you, Bob.
Oh, by the way, I just wanted to remind the council again that when we started this, there was a master contract from the North Central Texas COG. And we were basically piggybacking off of that contract to agree to make the agreement with this company. That's how that works. So legalities did go through our legal. The verbiage that first went out went through legal. We did require the logo at first. I think the logo on the envelope is no longer there, I believe. Correct. So they don't get a city emblem. You have to open up the envelope to see the emblem. When it first started off, we get a lot of complaints, a lot of confusion. Like you were saying, Mayor, we did have a lot of confusion. But over the last 4 or 5 years, it's been relatively quiet. The questions I get is this true? Is they're reliable? And we say, we endorse this company. We know that we have a representative, we have contacts with them, we will endorse this company. That's how that works. So anyway.
Further comments or questions? Yes, Tom?
So who does y'all's repair work? Do y'all use local companies, or do y'all have somebody?
We do. Anytime we enter into a new partnership, we have a contractor recruitment team that goes out and recruits contractors to join the network. We also give you the opportunity, if you have any preferred contractors that you would like us to kind of recruit into our network, we invite you to provide those to us. Otherwise, we'll use local contractors.
Cool, thank you.
So if I have a plumber who has consistently done the work at my house but might not be on your list, can I still use the contractor that I typically use for repairs at my house? Or do they have to be in your network?
So we like them to be on our network just because we cannot guarantee work for anybody outside of the network. But that's a conversation that we're not going to definitely say no and argue with. Like, if you have somebody, we'll reach out to them, see if we can get like an understanding with them and utilize them. But typically, we will ask to use a network contractor first, so we can guarantee the work.
All right,
I think you'd have a pretty good chance of using who you want, but anyway. No, back to the logo, I think we're just trying to establish we don't have ownership of this program.
Yeah.
But the proceeds and royalty we get out of this, we do good things with. It helps us, so I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
do we need an approval, or is
Is it
this
just
just
an update?
information only, I think?
Cool.
Information only? Good
Yes,
job.
I believe so. When we have a new campaign starting, I will provide you with the letter that we can go back and forth and make sure you guys approve of it.
Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item B is consider approving a resolution of no objection for a low-income housing tax credit, LIHTC, project in SMD3 by THF River Point LP to rehabilitate and redevelop the River Point Apartments located at 1173 Benedict Drive. And I believe, Bob, you're back on.
Yes, ma'am. KCG Companies, LLC, is requesting a resolution of no objection to compete for low-income housing tax credit funding to rehabilitate and redevelop the River Point Apartments, which is a 204-unit apartment complex located at 1173 Benedict Drive, just right down the road. Here this morning, we have CJ Littner. He's the Vice President of Development for KCG, and I'd like to talk to you about it.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Council, Mayor. Appreciate you giving me the time. I will go through a brief presentation here and obviously take any questions you may have. So again, CJ Lintner, representative for KCG Companies. KCG Companies is new to San Angelo, but we are not new to Texas. We have a long relationship with several Texas communities and have invested across the state as well as across the country since our company was formed in 2015. We last year were ranked the 8th largest affordable housing developer in the country. And I just mentioned that to kind of drive home the point that we are a fully built-out firm. We do have all divisions from development to design, construction, and property management all in-house. We are not a build-to-flip investor or a build-to-sell investor. We are long-term owners, long-term investors in the community. And should this move forward and come to fruition next year, we'll be invested in this property for at least 30 years. So very much look forward to becoming a longtime neighbor and working to, not just to do something in the short term, but ensure that this renovation leads to long-term value add for not just the residents, but the surrounding community. Just a little bit of detail on River Point Apartments. As mentioned, it's just down the road at 1173 Benedict Drive. This property has been in the community for quite some time. It was originally built in 1970 as a HUD property, and in 2009 it was renovated using low-income housing tax credits to preserve the affordability. That preservation is running out. At the end of this year, it would be up for technically a conversion to market rate housing or just to be operated as it is currently. Frankly, it's being operated currently without much maintenance, without much attention to preserving it long term. So while the property is habitable and fully occupied, it is in need of a renovation, a substantial renovation. And what we're looking to do here is put about $60,000 per unit into the property. The property itself does not have a lot of structural damage or structural repairs needed, so this is going to be mainly focused on the mechanicals, the electrical, the plumbing, and the interiors of the units themselves, getting them to more or less like a market rate quality or a new construction quality upon completion. We're overall looking to invest about $24 million between the acquisition of the property and the renovations. That will start off, assuming we move forward next September, take about 9 months. We will not be displacing any residents. We will not be forcing any residents out. We will temporarily house all the residents on site in kind of like a hotel building. We'll use a couple of the buildings on site to move residents in and out while we do the actual renovation. And as I mentioned earlier, our company will be around for the long term, managing and operating the property for literally decades to come.
Would you go through those statistics that you have there so people better understand? Obviously, they understand the bed count.
Yes.
But then as it relates to the 50% AMI, 60% AMI, and the HAP units, talk to us about what those numbers are.
Yes, that's a great question. So the 50 and 60% AMI units refer to the area median income level. So those units, which make up 2/3 of the overall property's units, will be rented to residents making at or under those income levels. So at or under the 50% level and at or under the 60% rent level.
So in other words, the one bed at 50%, they would pay $542 a month.
Correct. And the one bed at 60% would pay a bit more at the $693 per month. The HAP units are the balance of the units on the property. It's about 30% of the 204 units. Those units are covered by a contract with HUD, so the rent is a lot higher because HUD pays us directly for those units. Residents qualify for those units based on submitting a voucher to HUD, and if approved, then again, HUD pays the property directly for the rent on those units. So
the customer would still pay $1,082, or would they receive a check back that says, even though the rent is $1,082, we're going to give you a $500 voucher, so you're really paying $400?
Yeah, so these vouchers actually cover 100% of the rent. So the tenants listed in the HAP column there's 16 one beds, 12 two beds, 16 three beds, and 12 four beds. They pay $0 per month, and that is how the property has been operated since it was built in 1970. And that will just continue on those same units, those same 60 total units, and then the rest of the units, the 60, 50% units, and the 84, 60% units, those tenants will pay their own rent as they do presently today.
Okay.
Mayor, I do have a question.
Yes, please.
So you mentioned that no one's going to be displaced, but you look at the 50% and the 60%. How much more are residents going to be paying with a remodel after everything's done, or is it going to be staying the same as far as what they're paying?
The 50% rents will not go up. They're already at those levels. The 60% rents will go up between $25 and $50. And we are going to be, as we have historically, pretty sensitive to if that's a burden on our residents. That's not something that we need to achieve with residents that are there now. So it's kind of part of our financial underwriting. We generally model about 3 to 5 years for residents to move out. So it's not something that we rely on for feasibility.
So you will work with them then in that instance. So if you have an individual or a family that can't afford it at that point, that increase, you will work with them on that.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And not only will we work with them because we think it's the right thing to do, we are also under their Uniform Relocation Act, which is federal rule through HUD. We are required to do so. So that is something that is not on the table.
So let's say a person has been living on the streets for a year or 2 years and have no proven income. Is this a facility that individuals that have been living on the streets would be allowed to have their rent covered and move in?
It is not. So to live here, you do have to have an income. You do have to qualify as a tenant. So The difference between this and a market rate unit is just that the qualification threshold is a lot lower because the rent is lower. But this is not housing for the homeless, and this is housing for those who do have income. That income could be retirement income or work income, but they do need to have a W-2 or similar.
So even though under the HAP units, HUD covers 100% of that cost, but they still have to have an income?
Correct. We still have the same leasing requirements for the HUD units as the others. That just the income threshold is much lower. They could be down to either 30% or 40% of the area median income.
And say what the area median income is.
The area median income is the average overall income for the metropolitan statistical area, which is more or less San Angelo and some surrounding rural communities.
And so that income is what?
Last year, by HUD's measure, it was just under 70,000. It was 69,000 for the 100% of median income. So the 50% is just half of that, just under 35,000.
So if you made $70,000, you could qualify to live in one of these HUD units?
So the 100% median income is 69,000. So a 50% household has to make 50% of that, so they have to make just under 35,000. And then a 60% household is just under 42,000, I think. My quick math is right.
So that answers the 50 and the 60%, but what about the 100%?
So none of these units are available to tenants making over 60%. So the HAP units are available up to 60% AMI as well. They just, the HUD rent payment is higher because HUD is trying to incentivize these to be restored and be renovated. So when you do a renovation, they look at what kind of quality housing you generated as a result, and then they pay fair market rent, which is usually higher than 50 or the 60% level. And that's their way of incentivizing preservation of affordable housing.
Because we're on this page, and before we move on, are there questions on any of the information on this slide,
Yes, ma'am.
Larry?
It's admirable you have lighted ADA pathways on your list of amenities, but that leads me to ask the question about interior modifications to meet ADA compliance.
Yeah, that's a good question. We will be, fortunately, the interiors were upgraded to meet 2007, 2008 ADA requirements when it was renovated in 2009. So there will be some interior or unit upgrades to comply with ADA, but they're pretty easy to accomplish. They're mostly just more grab bars and more accessibility in the kitchens and in the bathrooms. And otherwise, the property is 95% in compliance as it is today. So there's actually very little ADA updates that need to be made to the units.
How about bathtubs and showers, though?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Bathtubs and showers.
Yes, we're replacing all the bathtubs and showers, and we do some roll-ins, and then we do some that are easier for people kind of need to push in and out of a wheelchair to get in.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, continue.
So, yeah, appreciate the questions. Those are great questions. And the kind of next step here moving forward, I mentioned we aren't going to start the renovations till September, so we've got quite a bit of time, a full year here almost. And in that time, we're going to be reaching out to some of the groups that came up earlier, Habitat, United Way, the Housing Authority, to do what we think is kind of the real most important thing is focus on operational success, connection with community services. We're not going to go looking for free money or free services. What we try to do is connect our residents with in-place successful programming and service opportunities here locally. And then we also have a pretty healthy budget in our operating financials for on-site resident supportive services. So we do like after-school programs, we do adult GED training, income tax preparation, help people get connected with trade jobs, things like that. And we run all that through our clubhouse for the residents specifically.
Mayor, this is
Yes.
in my district.
Harry, go ahead.
This property really needs some help. So from my perspective, I'd like to make a motion supporting this resolution to go forward with this.
Well, are you through with the presentation? I don't think we're quite through with the presentation, so let's continue.
I'll make it real quick, but I certainly appreciate that, council member. Thank you.
Don't pass this opportunity up.
In
Don't blow it now.
In conclusion, I will conclude. No, I will mention, though, we do have about a year before closing. We will be doing a lot of community outreach. You'll probably see us, myself back here again to pass some kind of final financing documentation on this project. But I really do appreciate you giving us the time and look forward to working with the community moving forward.
Any further questions before I take on and accept the motion for approval?
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Yes, you said that you would be starting September of 2024. What is the finish date that you're looking at?
It should take us no more than 9 months to renovate the property. So we'll be looking at late spring or early summer the next year.
Okay,
Go ahead, Lucy.
I was just going to say, if Harry's going to make a motion, I'll second that motion.
I think the only thing that I'm concerned about, and I'm sure you have a good plan, but that is moving them out of their apartment into another apartment. That just seems very complicated, and I'm sure you've done this many times, so you know how to get it done. But that picking people up and their possessions and moving them to another apartment, do you do this like 6 people at a time, 1 at a time? How do you do it to accomplish efficiency?
Yeah.
And execution?
That's a good question. It is the most complicated part of the renovation. We actually hire a third-party renovation consultant, relocation consultant that not only helps us facilitate all that alongside our construction team and our property management team, but make sure we're not breaking any rules and giving ample time and notice. So we will actually start sending out notices on this impending renovation next month, and those will go out at least every 60 days between now and then. We're gonna have 3 tenant meetings before we start the renovations to kind of let them know what's happening, the schedule. Everybody will know when in that 9-month period they are gonna be the ones being moved. And then when it actually comes time to moving day, we have a team that will come in, professional movers, box everybody's stuff up, move it across the property to the hotel building, get the tenant to review that move and make sure nothing was damaged or broken in that 30 minutes of transition, and then do the same thing when we move them back. Tenants will not be out of their units for more than 30 days, probably 2 weeks. And we fortunately have a kind of an easy site plan to work with here. We've got 22 buildings on site, so instead of one really large building where everybody's being displaced and kind of hassled by the construction, we're going to do the hotel buildings off to kind of one side of the site and then work that way towards it. So
When you say hotel building, you know, all of us know hotel rooms are a bed and a bathroom.
yes,
Is that
sorry, yeah, that's a
Is
bad.
a bed and a bathroom?
No, they will. That's some bad industry speak I'm using. So we'll just be taking 2 of the apartment buildings on site that are full apartments right now. There'll actually be all 3 and 4 bedrooms. So everybody will be moving into a unit that is at least as big, if not bigger, than the one they're living in currently, and have a full operational apartment unit. And we will renovate those hotel units before we move people in. So when people are being moved into them, they're not moving into someone else's old dirty apartment. They're moving into a brand new apartment.
Daniel?
Just for clarification, so the hotel units, as you call them, so you're saying right now they're capacity, correct?
They are at 92% occupancy,
Okay.
yes.
So, because basically, you're going to have people that actually are gone from those hotel units in order to be able to move, as far as I'm thinking logistically how that works.
Yeah, so we have 8% vacancy right now at the property, and we've got the current owner to agree to stop leasing. So if anybody, so right now we have enough.
By attrition, they move out, and then
Yeah.
you get that space.
Yeah, and if nobody moves out today, we have enough right now to have a full empty building, and that's really all we need.
I just wanted to make sure that no one's being kicked out just to get those hotel units.
No, that is not the foot we were wanting to start off on.
Very good, thank you.
You call them hotel rooms, does that mean we get hot tax money on them? Just asking.
We'll have to look into that with the city legal team.
Watch what you say, because, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And it was great to come on your guys' inaugural Affordable Housing Days. Good coincidence. Appreciate that.
Further questions or comments? Then I will, Harry has made a motion to approve this resolution, and Lucy has seconded. It is now open for public comment. Is there any public comment today? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of approving this resolution, please say aye.
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 Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Appreciate the time.
Thank you. Item C is consider a resolution nominating candidates to serve on the Board of Directors of the Tom Green County Appraisal District for the 2024-2025 term. And Heather, you're on.
There we go. So this item comes before you every 2 years for you to have the opportunity to nominate 5 board members for the Tom Green County Appraisal District. The 5 current board members are willing to serve again. However, this would be your opportunity to nominate a different board member. And then in about 6 to 8 weeks, we'll come back, and that will be whenever you actually put forth your votes.
All right, so what I think Candy is in the audience. I don't see her now. She's back there, okay. What I asked originally was that we have an opportunity to have a conversation with these board members, because very often we take a vote and we've never had a conversation in terms of this past year or the future year or any comments that you might have or questions that you might have. So today is our opportunity to have a discussion, public discussion, and I think it's important because, as you all know, this past appraisal cycle was full of lots of frustration, questions, concerns, problems, etc. So now's your opportunity to ask some questions and make some comments. So, Candy, would you come forward? And is there another person? Yes, okay. Scott.
Here.
Yeah. If you'll both, 3 people, yay, come on. And Tyler, so.
Mayor and Council, Candy Poole. I serve on the Board of Directors for the Tom Green County Appraisal District. And with me today is also the Chief Appraiser for our Tom Green County Appraisal District, Tyler Johnson. And also a new board member taking the place of John Kahn, who retired earlier this year, is Scott Tankersley.
Thank you.
If you have questions, we'd be glad to answer those. I'll let Tyler sort of speak, and then if you have specifics to myself or Scott, you can do that.
Thank you. Tyler, you're on.
Thank you very much. Thank you for allowing me to be here this morning. Just to add a little bit to Heather's comments, I sent the allocations for the voting process before October 15th or before October 1. Y'all will return the nominations by October 15th. I will then send out ballots by October 30th, and you'll have time to vote inside of the next 2 meetings to send your votes back to the district. If there's any questions you have, I'd be happy to address
Well, the first one I would have is new legislation has been passed that allows for 3 elected officials to be on the board.
Yes, ma'am.
When would that election be held?
So Senate Bill 2 will be voted on in November of this year in relation to the increased homestead for Tom Green County and the rest of the state as well. With that bill, there is, like the mayor has stated, an additional 3 elected at-large members of the Board of Directors. That election will take place in May of 2024 with a office date of July 1. Along with the county tax assessor collector will also become a member of the board as well. Like I said, that election will be in May.
At this point, have all property owners had an opportunity to come forward and protest their appraisal, or are you still in the process of those meetings?
Yes, ma'am. We are almost finished. We have heard almost 17,000 protests this year. We will finish that at the end of this month of October.
Does that 17,000 number tell us that there was obviously lots of frustration and issues with the tax appraisals as they received them? And based off of the fact that October 1, our fiscal year started here at the City of San Angelo, and if you're still hearing protests, how does that impact our total property tax dollars at this point?
I think in terms of how many protests we've had, I think over the past several years, there's been a lower number of protests. Also, we have been doing our job, which is to appraise at market value. I think because of that, along with an assortment of other issues, there has been an increased amount of protests. I want everybody, every taxpayer, to always protest their value if they feel it's needed. We want to make sure that they have their chance to speak before the Appraisal Review Board, to hear their complaints, their concerns about their property value. That way we can address those matters. In terms of the levy associated to the city, we are this Friday starting our first round of tax statements now that all tax rates have been adopted. We will start that process this Friday, hopefully with the first round of statements hitting the mail second week of October. So the only thing that will be lagging will be this month's accounts that have not gone through the ARB process. There will be a supplemental run of tax statements probably at the beginning of November. At that time, every account that has gone through the process will have a tax statement sent to it.
So if in November, we have the ability to vote on the homestead exemption, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
So with that said, then how is it that these letters are going to be mailed to property tax owners not knowing whether this legislation has passed or not?
Yes, ma'am. According to Senate Bill 2, when it was passed by the legislature, every district was to act as if the bill had been passed. We will send tax statements. So we updated our homestead when that happened, and now the tax rates have been adopted. The Senate Bill 2 requires us to act and operate as if the bill has passed. Every tax statement will have verbiage from the bill that states this is the amount you will pay if Senate Bill 2 is passed in November. If it is not passed, this is what your tax bill would have been. If it does not get passed, a supplemental bill will be sent.
Clear as mud. So thank you for that. And I'm going to open up the floor for other questions or comments from my city council members. Tom?
So, Tyler, I mean, we've all fielded a lot of phone calls this year. It is what it is. Some of us are having trouble seeing how this house can suddenly be valued at this house, and there are 30 years difference, things like that. Of the people that have protested, how many of them, I would say, I won't say be successful, but have been adjusted back down to versus how many of you denied and said, no, we're at where we need to be? And I'm not looking for a definitive number. I'm just saying, is the gap where you said 90% of the people that come to us, we have adjusted back down, or we haven't?
So the process, did the process work?
Yeah. According to the code, I cannot give those exact numbers, but I can tell you that everybody that has come to the district, I feel they have either maybe not left happy, but left satisfied with an understanding of what we did or why we made a change when they came in. I would say well over half of those protests have been done informally with one of my staff members and an informal agreement instead of having to go to the Appraisal Review Board. Keep in mind, we do not have access to people's homes. We do our appraisals from the street. So with that being said, we don't know the condition of people's homes on the interior. So that's why I welcome every piece of information that comes from my office. I want the taxpayers to read so that they understand what their value is, so that they might have a concern over that, to file a protest. They might have more information regarding their home than we do. So I want people to file a protest. We hope to deal with as many informally as possible, so that we don't have to prolong the ARB season. But at the same time, we know that the ARB is there for its purpose, and the ARB was chosen by the local administrative judge with Senate Bill 2. that will be coming back to the board of directors as well. But we have a relatively new ARB, all local individuals that are either involved in real estate banking, former superintendents. They understand public awareness. They understand what it means to hear somebody's complaints and issues about their value. They're very well respected. I think they've done a fantastic job this year.
So a big question I get a bunch of times, what rates are locked when you turn 65?
What rates?
What rates are locked here as a resident of San Angelo are locked when you turn 65?
When you turn 65, you have an over 65 freeze related to the taxable value or the taxes on your home. The school district has a mandatory over 65. The city offers an optional over 65 as well. With Senate Bill 2 and the compression of tax rates, Senate Bill 12 actually allowed for the recompression of over 65 value, meaning that if your taxable value ended up being less than what your frozen amount of taxes paid would be, it lowered that to what it is now, right?
Okay.
So, and then along with Senate Bill 2, it also, with the homestead increasing to 100,000, it's going to decrease people's amount of taxable value, which in turn will lower their freeze as well. So when you turn 65, the year you turn 65, you have an over 65 freeze that is associated to your home as well.
Okay. I get that question a lot, and then I think there's not a lot of clarity into that.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get a phone call from somebody that's a constituent within our district, and they don't want to do the research to come out with the fine details on that, it's going to end up back up with y'all. But I mean, my largest concern is they get treated fairly when they come in and they go out.
Absolutely.
And I mean, that's the best thing we can hear is when they leave there, if they agree that it's fair, fine. But some of the things I have seen in a comparison of houses have been a lot of variance between the two.
Yes, sir.
And, houses that differ 30, 40 years end up at the same appraisal. Those, I hope they go to y'all and they get adjusted properly.
They have been. One thing I would also ask of the city council as well is that when you speak to your constituents, my staff is members of your constituency as well. And we have had a few issues of some overly anxious and angry people. I understand that. I would also ask that you pass along to your constituents that as professional and polite as they can be as well, my staff is there to do their job, and that's it. And they're members of the community as well. We're not trying to get into any kind of arguments. We're trying to do what is put forth to us in the tax code. And the tax code is mandatory that we appraise at market value based off the information provided. Also, there's another issue there. The district is only as good as the information that it has, it's able to receive or able to find. That's another reason we ask that people protest, so that we have more information to use to produce better quality appraisals as well.
Well, very often I hear this, that you're required to appraise that piece of property at 96% of market value. So people throw out these percentages. So what you've just said is it's not a percentage, it's flat market value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a difference in how people understand that. The tax code in section 1, I believe, states the district is to appraise at market value. Then exemptions are applied, okay? Then your homestead exemption is applied. But where people might get that percentage misconstrued is the fact that when this district goes through state testing, okay? State testing requires that we be at 95 or in between 95 and 105 of market value. There's a range there that our values can be at. So people automatically assume, well, you're only supposed to be at 95%. No, that test is based off of a whole mass grouping of properties that they're trying to make sure that our market values fall between. It has nothing to do with how we appraise from an individual standpoint or a group of properties. The code states we already appraise at market value, 100% market value. So that's what we appraise at.
So explain what happens to a city or a county if in fact they come out and do tests on appraised values relative to market value, and we are at 90%, not 95 to 105. So describe how the state approaches that and what happens?
Property value study is in place so that school funding for appraisal or for school districts is appropriate and across the board from county to county. This year will be Tom Green County Appraisal District's third year in a row of state of property value studies because of a lack of market value approach. In 2021, we were out of compliance from the state level. 2022, trying to get back to where we're supposed to be. Mind you, that was through one of the highest spiked market values of residential property in the history of Texas, which is why we're still trying to get back to where we're supposed to be according to the data. So if after a certain amount of time, market value or in compliance is not met, that can start to affect local or state funding to local school districts.
So then you would be put on a warning saying that you've undervalued properties, so the funding for our school district would be negatively impacted because we didn't produce the numbers that the state says we should have produced.
To a certain extent, yes. That's why we're in our third year here. After 21 and 22, we met qualifications to be given a grace period. Local value was kept at the state level. They accepted our numbers. In 2023, if we do not meet those standards, that could, in fact, start to affect state funding to local school districts.
Then the next question that comes up all the time is, okay, so last year and the year before, there were a lot of bidding wars for homes. There was inflation. There were people paying over listed price for their homes. The question becomes, that was, a 2-year window of activity. So now the question is, that's over. Things have calmed down. We're hearing across the board that home sales have slowed down, that the market's not as hot as it was. So at what point do those home values come back down to a reality, or do they always stay at that number? Because, again, during time periods when the oil and gas industry was explosive, home, again, were high, but they never come back down.
Mm-hmm.
So explain why they can go up during inflationary time periods, but they never go back down.
I think a lot of the increase that we've seen at the district has been not only associated to the market, but also associated to getting neighborhoods to where they should have been in the first place. I will tell you that if the market data ever shows that I should decrease property value, I will be the first person to do it. I want to do what the data shows me. You are right that the market has shown that there's more homes on the market now. I've only seen about a 2 or 3% drop from list to sale price. So I would not say that has necessarily been a decrease in the market just yet. I would say that the average sale price is relatively the same as it's been. I think we're seeing more of a plateau at this point in the third quarter of the year. Hopefully, towards the end of the year, we might see some different information. But my job is not to get the highest value or the lowest value. My job is to get the most appropriate and correct value. And that's what I intend to do. Whether the data shows the value to increase or decrease based off the data that the district has. I think that's important note there at the end to recognize the data that the district has. We might not always have all of the sales related to what might show a decrease in property value, which again is another reason why it's important for taxpayers to protest their value.
Questions, comments from council? Larry?
Here, I have a question.
You were talking about
Lucy.
the grace period we were given.
Yes, sir.
And now we have to deliver in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
How optimistic are you about us meeting the state's requirements?
I'm always going to be optimistic. I will say that I believe my staff and the district as a whole has done a fantastic job of hoping to get to where we need to be. Just a little understanding of where we've come from. I have 4 residential appraisers. In the last 2 years, they have reclassed almost 40,000 homes in SAISD, along with some of the smaller school districts in Tom Green County. The job we have undertaken is a monumental one. For it to be fixed in 2 years would be a fantastic result in my eyes. I've expressed this to the board. They understand that a 2-year window is a relatively anxious one, but at the same time, it's something that we're shooting for. I do feel optimistic that we will be where we're supposed to be. I do.
Lucy,
Yes, ma'am, thank you. My question is next.
can you speak a little louder, Lucy?
Yes, ma'am. Oh, excuse me. My mic was down. My question is kind of like with Tom Thompson's about the age of 65. When one is 65 or is turning 65, do they have to come into the office to notify, or does it automatically happen?
If they have a homestead exemption on file, the year they turn 65, that exemption is implemented onto their account if they have a homestead on file. That's another thing I would strongly encourage members of the community to recommend or to consider is if you own and occupy a home in Tom Green County and you do not have a homestead exemption, it is the single best piece of property tax relief that you can have as a homeowner. Please, if you do not have a homestead and you do own and occupy your home, please come to our office and file an exemption through our exemptions office. We'll be happy to assist you.
If
Thank
you
you so
forget
much.
to do that, is it retroactive where you can go, uh-oh, I forgot, so help me out this,
Yes.
and go backwards?
It's current plus 2 years. If you've occupied the home for an extended amount of time and you have not had a homestead exemption, I believe it's current plus 2. It might be current plus 5. I'll have to check that, but I'm pretty sure it's current plus 2. Either way, whatever requirements we can meet per the code that allows us to go back and apply an exemption, we'll be happy to do.
All right, the next question I have is the fine. We have Tom Green County Appraisal District Board, which we all vote on those members. What does the board do, and how much authority do they have? Is it just for nice that we have this board? Because the state pretty much dictates what has to be done. So is this board a board that really gets to vote on something that's actionable?
Ma'am, would y'all like me? The board's primary purpose is to first hire a chief appraiser and to set policy for the district. They adopt a budget and they approved contracts for vendors over $50,000. Their job is to make sure that not only they communicate with the chief appraiser, their only employee, to make sure that laws are being followed, procedural matters are being handled, and also that we are doing our level best to serve the jurisdictions and the taxpayers themselves. So they do serve a very, very precious purpose. They serve a purpose in counseling me, helping me decide what policy is best for our employees, our staff, our community, our district, but also that making sure we're keeping in with state statute as well.
I think overwhelmingly what we would like to see happen, as well as most citizens in Tom Green County, is less drama this next year and less shock value when these appraisals come out. The tension, the stress, the anxiety that came with this year's appraisals was tremendous. And so I'm sure there's some PTSD involved in the appraisal district, because that was, I know what I went through, and so I know other people did as well. So we would hope that by communicating up front, and perhaps we need to do this next year before appraisals go out, that there's some indication and some conversation publicly about what taxpayers might expect.
I would agree 100%. Nobody has had a more difficult time this year than my staff. They have bared the brunt of mandated requirements that we're supposed to handle. I would also say that I am open and willing to have conversations at any time to present to the City Council, Mayor, Daniel, any time that it is needed. I would be happy to come back before notice next year to give presentation on what we've seen in the market, what we think valuation would do. I'm an open book, so I'm happy and willing to serve at any time needed.
Further questions or comments,
Yes,
Council? Larry?
When the problems first came up, I checked through some of the property rolls, and there were folks that should have been homesteading and weren't. I think it's problematic out in the community, but I wondered if your folks are advising people on possible comps, not just the homestead exemption, but disabled veterans over 65, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, sir. There is information in our notice packets along with our website that give all the qualifications for any type of exemption that you might qualify for. Most of my appraisers, when they sit down with the taxpayer, one of the first questions they ask is, do you own and occupy this home? Do you have a homestead exemption? Are you a disabled veteran that you might qualify for even a further exemption? We welcome application for exemption. We want people, even if they don't know if they will qualify, we would like to see their information in order for us to determine through the code, our attorneys, things of that nature, whether or not they do. I would say there have been times where somebody's qualified and said, I don't know if I do. It ends up being that they do. So we want them to take that extra step. But I don't have the staff to go out to everybody that has a ownership of the property to see if they own and occupy the home, right? There's certain requirements related to the homestead exemption. That's why we stress that if you do own and occupy the home as your principal residence, that you do come in and file a homestead exemption.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So if I own a home and I have a homestead exemption on it, but I sell it in the month of July and move into a new one in September, does that homestead exemption automatically move to the new one, or do you have to requalify the new home for the exemption?
You can only have homestead on one property in a single tax year. You can do a homestead transfer that would take place in the following year, but you can only have homestead on your principal residence in one location every calendar year.
Regardless if you sold one.
Regardless if you sold one. Because technically speaking, you might be buying a home that somebody else has a homestead on as well. You'll be getting the benefit of that person's exemption for the remainder of the year, right? Just like the person that buys your home is going to get the benefit of your home the remainder of the year.
That answers a lot of my questions and comments and concerns that I receive from citizens. So I appreciate
Yes,
you
ma'am.
being here and bringing a lot of this information forward.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thank you.
Scott, Candy, thank y'all too for serving. Tyler, thank you.
One of the other things I'll say, just letting you know about the market that the mayor brought up, and Scott Breder talked to that, he's an appraiser. The market has changed some because the interest rates have gone up substantially. But we're still seeing a lot of purchasing. San Angelo proper has less than 3 months of inventory. A normal month is 6 months, or normal year is 6 months worth of inventory. We've been lower than that. We've been at 1.3 back in 22, the early part of this year. It's moved up to about 3. So we're about half of what's normal, and 6 months is normal. So the market is changing a little bit, but not substantially real quick.
But those those are MLS listings. So there homes that a developer has available to be bought that might not be listed, so that number is I don't want to say artificially low, but low relative to that.
Yes, it does not include new construction. Those figures are basically MLS, as you said, through the Texas Association of Realtors, who keeps up with all the stats. It does not include for sale by owners, things like that, or a developer that's remodeling one, going to sell it or something like that. It does not include those.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on to.
Mayor.
Oh, yes.
Council does need to verbalize if they want to nominate the 5 existing board members, or if you would like to nominate somebody new.
Do I have anyone who would like to nominate somebody new? Karen?
Are we allowed to nominate more than one candidate?
We can only
for
nominate
consideration?
5.
So you could say 2 names, but in total, we can only
And then
nominate
we-
5.
Okay, so I'm a little confused. We will vote on a final 5 in 2 weeks, is that correct? Or
A little
month
bit
or
more than 2
something.
weeks, but yes.
So we can add names for consideration now to the existing 5. Go.
Well, sorry, just to clarify your
Thank you.
question. What will happen is all jurisdictions that are eligible to vote will send their nominations before October 15th. By October 30th, I will send a ballot of all those nominations. Each jurisdiction will be able to vote based on the number of votes that I've sent over. They'll be able to vote for whoever is on the nomination ballot, right? So whether you nominate one person or the 5 that that are currently members, we still have to go through the voting process. So the ballot will include every nomination that is made by any jurisdiction that is eligible to vote.
So if we added 5 to the 5 that exist
You can only nominate 5.
total,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
okay.
So if,
Well,
so
let's
if you
just
wanted
say-
to put forth a new name, you would have to select a current board member that you don't want to nominate. Yeah.
Well, technically speaking, the jurisdiction can nominate anywhere up from 1 to 5, whether it be the jurisdiction nominates 1 or it nominates 5. You can do what is acceptable from the jurisdiction itself.
But the maximum number is 5. The maximum number is 5.
Yes, because in the end, there will be 5 appointed members.
So do we have a list of our existing, of our current 5?
We do.
Yes.
We do, right?
Yeah.
Louis Gomez, Candy Poole, Bob Reeves, Scott Tankersley, Eric Wilson.
Okay.
Mayor, I'd make a motion that we nominate those 5 folks.
Second by Harry. Any public comment? Seeing none, we will then vote on no, we don't vote today. We do vote
You'll
today on
just-
those 5.
You're voting to nominate those 5 board members.
There's a motion to keep with the same 5 that are currently serving. There's been a second on that. And is there public comment? With no public comment, we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 7-0. Do you want to break or you want to keep going? We want to, well, break or keep going? Keep going, we're going on. All right, item D, consider approving a request for funding from the Infill Empowerment Zone Program for infrastructure funding up to 50% of costs for water, sewer, fire, hydrants, and related costs in an amount not to exceed $160,854 for the Shriners Point subdivision. Section 2, located on Bloom Street, south of 40th Street, and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute all related documents. John, you're on.
Thank you. John James, Director of Planning and Development Services. This is just a map showing the general location of the site that we're talking about. It is just off of Armstrong here, and then Bloom Street and 40th are right there. So it's kind of a vacant area, and you'll see that better in a second. This is the proposed preliminary plat. So this shows the entirety of the subdivision in that area. So all of this area is vacant now, but this has all been preliminarily platted with the lots as you see them. But the red area is the one in question today. So that's the area that they're requesting the funding for. So this is kind of a zoom in of those lots for this particular request. So as you may recall, that we have two different infill incentive programs. One is the what we called option 1 at $5,000 per home. So if you want to build a home in an infill designated area, you can come in, apply for the building permits, and then we would hold $5,000 for that home. Once it's completed, the builder would get that $5,000 for each home. The other option is the empowerment zone incentive, and that is not on a per home basis, but it is for costs like sewer and water costs, and that's what they're asking for in this case. So they're asking for sewer and water extensions to help serve into this infill area.
Explain an empowerment zone.
That's just the term used in the state law that allows this type of funding for basically what we're using it for is infill development. So the summary of their costs, as proposed, they're proposing water, sewer, and fire hydrant installation of about $321,000. The city engineer has reviewed their engineer's estimate and said that's a reasonable estimate for what they're doing. Under the program, they're eligible for up to 50%, which would be a little over $160,000. It would serve 19 lots, which comes out to about $8,466 per lot. I will point out, and they can probably address this more, but this is extending service into and serving these lots, but it will help provide services beyond that to lots, the further south lots in the future.
So explain that, because the way one would look at it is saying that it's this amount of money for 19 lots only. And you say it's not just for these 19 lots, but it's for additional water lines, sewer lines that will be put down for the rest of the development.
No, and again, the applicant can probably better answer this. I don't think it's extending the lines into that undeveloped area, but by developing this, it goes a long way towards helping them then be able to develop those additional lots.
How's that?
Just by getting the first set of water and sewer lines into the ground for the first part of this development. I'll note that there is a currently available funding of $200,000. That's actually a little off. We just checked, and the $200,000 is what you've allotted for the current fiscal year that just started October 1st. There is about $5,689 left over from last year. Not a huge amount, but that does put this currently available funding to a little over $205,000. You'll note that this 160 that they're requesting is a little over 3/4 of that available funding. And when a similar request came 2 or 3 years ago, one of the concerns raised by the council was giving that much of a percentage of the full amount to one development. At the time, you discussed possibly limiting the amount to any one developer to a certain cap. That really never got fleshed out. So there is no cap. You are able to authorize all 160,000 that they're requesting. And as you can see, with the 5,000, we didn't quite use all of that 200,000 this year. And so in the past, we've had some additional carryover.
May I ask a question? Sorry for interrupting. But in the program, they only qualify for the 5,000 and can only apply for that 5,000 once the home is completed.
If they use the option 1 funding, yes, they could only get to a maximum of 5,000 per house, and they would only receive that after the house is completed. That's right.
So when you say there's 5,000 left over, there could be homes that are being built right now but are not completed that might come forward and ask for funding.
No, once they come in for a building permit for an infill home, that 5,000 is set aside, so it's no longer available.
Thanks for that clarification.
Now, the reverse could be true. If there are some people who came in for permits, we set aside 5,000 for them, they didn't end up completing it or they didn't do it on time, some of that could come back into the pot in the future. I don't believe that's ever happened, but that is a possibility. I think I covered all this. Basically, in the past, you had a concern about granting too much for one project. Staff is recommending funding of this project. We're just kind of deferring to you all how much is the right amount, but we do think it's a good project that should get funding.
Tom, it's in your area, so I'm going to let you go first.
So John, how many people typically request funding every year? So I will lead with, I'm telling you why I asked this. It's a large amount of money. It's a high percentage of the available funds. Love the project. We love the goal of doing things, and we need this housing. But I don't want to short, and going back on to what I brought up a couple of weeks ago on council, I hate to give it all to one and then have the risk of others coming forth and not being able to apply for, you would say, worthy projects that were just as equitable in value. So do we run a risk of not being able to fulfill other requests, and have we seen that many requests in the past?
It just varies by year. Like I said, this past year that we just completed, we spent it all except for about 5,000. I think in other years, we've sometimes had a little bit bigger of a carryover where not all the money was requested. So it's kind of a risk both ways. If, you give this all to them, and then we get a bunch of people wanting to come in and you don't have enough money to help. The flip side, though, is you say, well, let's cut theirs down, and then we don't get those more requests, and so we're carrying over more money because we didn't spend it all. It's really hard to guess, in any one year how many we'll get.
Bob?
To answer your question, Councilman, the first year we had 39 applicants. The second one we had 20. The third we had 19. And this last year we had 47. Because of the carryovers, we were able to do that. So the numbers do fluctuate quite a bit.
Right, but so we've had anywhere from 20 to 47 applicants.
Absolutely.
So I'll go with, here's where I'll throw this out to council, and I think we kind of need to discuss this. Is there a way to go in, I'll just throw out a number, if we give them 5,000 for the 19 or 20 houses, and we go with that and we keep 100,000 in reserve, at the end of the year, if that hasn't been used, we can go back and award that to them to go and try to do the second part of the empowerment move. I don't know, but I have a risk of giving out I have a concern with giving out 160,000 to one person when we have had a minimum of 20 people come back and ask. And I've had some people call on this saying, I might be doing something in this construction, not in this district, but you know where I'm going with that. So that's my concern of keeping it fair to everybody. But if it's not used, I have no problem going and giving it in, I say, retroactively going back. But I don't know if that's even possible.
I think the question would be, based off of this plat and the request for 19 units, how many total units are in this plat?
I think I'd have to defer to the applicant for that, unless somebody wants to count all those real quick. But yeah, it's 110, I'm hearing from
Okay,
Eric.
so there's a potential of 110 houses that could be built or based off of this plat approval.
That's right.
And the question mark would be, is the intent of the developer to do all 110 over X amount of years, or is their intent to sell off some of these plots to other people to build on? So is it contained or not contained? Would you come forward? Because I think there's a lot of questions that you can answer better than anyone.
Good morning, guys. Thank you for having me. I'm Eric Von Rosenberg. I represent Mission Land Company. We would be doing this in phases. So this line that he's drawn out in the red, that would be considered phase one. We'll probably do, I think there's four phases total. So that would probably be over 4 to 5 years.
Okay. Other
So
questions?
Eric, do you think you can complete one a year, like each one of your phases, totally get it completed within a year?
The way it's gone, so give you a little background, how we got here. We acquired 19 lots on 39th Street. And we acquired 5 lots on Bowie. We knocked those out in about a year's time.
Which meanwhile, those on Bowie look really good.
Thank you. Yeah, it's, I think most people probably know me as a custom builder. We jumped into this because there was a need. We've kind of taken the same concept, but making them as affordable as possible. So that being said, we knocked out 39th Street. We're currently over on Medina. And we have a waiting list. We've stopped taking contracts because we don't want to, overpromise. And we really need to get going on this because there are 6 lots that are currently on 40th that have water and sewer. We've already begun on those, but we need to get these going for next year. And I don't think there would be any problem. If anything, we'll probably be trying to get this developed, these houses going, and then start almost immediately once we get to a certain percentage of completion on these houses for the second phase. It's kind of like what we were talking about earlier with affordable homes. There's just a need, in this area, in this town in general. This area has been really good. A lot of the people in the area, we've gotten a lot of really good feedback from them. We've worked with the Shriners, which is who we bought this property from. We made a deal with them that we're putting a plaque in their honor. So we've tried to do everything to make everybody in the area happy. I think originally there was an apartment complex designed to go there, and they were not happy with that.
Oh, no, they weren't.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
But there was a need for it.
There's definitely been a need for housing. From what I gathered from everybody, the apartment was not what they were wanting.
They didn't want the three-story.
Yeah.
It was the issue of the three-story that was
Correct.
the complicating factor. But I understand the McDonald companies have pulled out and you bought the
Yes,
rest
ma'am.
of that property. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Originally, we bought the southern portion, and then when McDonald pulled out, we bought the rest from them, which really helped. The problem, and again, it kind of ties into what we're asking for here today. The problem with this property is getting the water and the sewer. So that's why it has sat for a while. We've figured out with Erica's help how to make that happen, but the biggest hurdle is affordability. So in order to keep the prices down and try and continue to build the houses with the same price that we've been able to provide.
Talk about that price.
So currently, we're 225 to 230, 235 on the highest side. Without trying to sell this, but the reason that we've been able to do that is, one, with the 5,000 infield money, we've just basically taken our lot cost and deducted it by 5,000 and passed it on to the sales price. Now with this, what we're kind of running into, because majority, like on 39th Street and some of the other ones, all we had to put in was sewer and water. With this one, we've got the sewer, the water, the streets, the curbs, the clearing, everything else that's involved. So it's a little bit more difficult to maintain that price point, but that's what we want to do, because that's what we've established with everybody that wants one of these houses. And so that's where this funding would significantly help us.
So with the funding, Eric, because you mentioned streets and curbs, so does this only put in the streets and the curb and gutter within that red district, or
The way the
further?
program works with the infield, it is strictly sewer and water. So that's why, we're responsible for streets, curbs, all the rest of the infrastructure that has to go in.
And that sewer water would simply be for those 19 homes, so there's no sewer or water extended into this further than the red marked area.
Correct, but kind of what we were talking about earlier, John was talking about, what it does is it provides access for the future phases. So once we get it down south, coming down Blum Street, then once we begin phase 2, our taps are there and they're ready to go. So kind of knocks out two birds with one stone.
Yes, Tommy? Oh, wait a minute. Harry wanted to say something a minute ago, so let me backtrack.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I agree with Tom. This is a project it's needed, especially in this particular area. I'm just a little concerned spending $160,000 out of $200,000. I'd rather we go back and take a look at the $5,000 per unit and see if that will work.
Tommy?
It occurs to me, maybe what we might consider is a one-time addition to the program. Another 100,000, another 200,000, just to the program to assist this project. This is on a much larger scale, but we had a project 2 weeks ago. One of your colleagues here in town over on Edgewood Street. I assume these may be similar type. That's not the point here, but maybe we would consider a one-time addition to the program of whatever amount council deemed appropriate to help with this. But then I guess somebody could say, well, okay, then we could come back and do that if we have other projects. If we have more projects than we have available funding for, we can come back and do that at a later date. I think Mr. Von Rosenberg is correct. There is pretty obviously a need for this price point in town. Our housing study bore that out. So there's some more food for thought, Council. Maybe we consider an addition to the program on a one-time basis.
Right now, this is the consideration, is to vote on the 160,000. A separate conversation can be had later, but that's not on the table based off of this line item.
Brenda, I got some questions. Mr. Rose, Eric, thank you very much for this. I'd like to bring John James back up and ask some questions of John. So John, looking at flexibility, what we have with basically the funds here, is it possible to award him a part now and then come back and say, if this is not used and there's a balance remaining, you know, at the end of the program, we can go back and pick up the balance of what he asked for? So if we give one and then come back in and say, if we want, and I just want to be fair to, I mean, we've had 19 to 20 applicants for that. So I want to see if there's a way to actually do that. I mean, we get him half the way or a little more. And then, you know, I was thinking more like 6,000 a spot, you know, which would put him, I think, around 114 and then go, because I mean, if you split out the shortage there versus the 160, we're not too far off. It's a couple thousand a plat, but I mean, a lot. But anyway, at the end of the year, if we haven't awarded the 2,000, we come back and pick up any of the balance. I just don't know how well that works for Eric on pricing his homes and doing that. But I mean, if he's already got them sold and contracted, it is what it is. It doesn't affect what we're looking at today.
Yeah, I think we could do that. And then again, at the end of the year, if we hold that money, if there's extra, then it gets them. I guess that's a question for them, how that works financially for them. But I would guess they'd be happy with whatever you give them. But
well, I have gotten a couple phone calls, and it's been in the past, 48 hours. But there's people that have these and go, is that all that's going to be awarded? Going back to what Hebert just brought up, is that all the funding that's available? And I'll go back to what Brenda said. We're voting on what we're working on today. I don't know the scope of where that will go in the future, but this is what we're working on tomorrow. And I am so glad to see this thing started. I just don't want to cut somebody out for just not being here today.
Eric, what time frame would these, so you start work tomorrow, when would the first house be completed or these be completed for purchase?
So to give you an idea, the first 6 right there on 40th, that's not included in this red section. We have 4 pads down right now. Those will be completed in roughly 3 to 4 months. After that, we probably have another 5 or 6 months easily just getting everything in the red zone right there to the point where we can even begin construction. So we're kind of not necessarily behind the 8 ball, but as far as inventory or what the demand is, there might be a gap there because there's just a lot of people who need these houses. So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
It does.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, further questions for Eric?
I have, Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, Lucy.
I just wanted to make a comment. My opinion or my state on this item is that I believe that we should go ahead and, I think it's a great project. I think it's wonderful. People do need the homes and everything, but I still think that we need to stay with the criteria that we had for the infill incentive funding program with option 2 and just award them the 50% for the sewer and water extension so that other people, if they do need this money for them to do another project, that the money will be there. And I'm not opposed to doing what Thompson said as far as at the end, if there's money left, we can award it. but I do believe that we need to stick with what we originally stated in our criteria. Because if we don't, then we're going to be changing this, and not only in this program, but in other programs. So that's my stand on that.
I think by developing these 19, as you said, Eric, there's already a demand that, or people asking to make a contract on
Yes, ma'am.
one of these lots. You just can't fulfill those right now, so you're holding back. That
Yes,
tells
ma'am.
you that the demand is there. And when this project first came out, we were thrilled because we believe this area of town is an area of town that is, and based off of the earlier new homes that were built, obviously the reaction was very positively
Yes.
at that point. Unfortunately, because of commodity costs and other associated costs with that, the home prices have gone from what would have been, $159,000 to now this. I doubt that there's been a whole lot of upgrades from those original houses. It's just the cost of labor and the cost of the supply chain and commodities. So they're good homes for the value, and it's, in today's world, I think, something that's really needed.
I will say in the very beginning when we started this, prices skyrocketed on materials. Labor was an issue, and it was extremely challenging. But we made it through, and things have kind of come down a little bit. You know, they're not perfect on the prices, but we have found a way to still maintain, you know, the house that we want to build and the price that we want to keep them at.
And I want to commend city staff, because when I brought up to Daniel, when we started this program, we had to do something to help develop this area. And the staff came back with our support with this infill program. And that infill program has been a good catalyst for development in this area. And what we found was that when on a block, when a home had been built, then the neighbors all of a sudden started painting their homes and started cleaning up their yards,
Right.
and that it improved the neighborhood. So all the things that we wanted, and Daniel, you supported this infill program, and we came up with the funds to do it back then, and I thank you for supporting that. It is important, and it is an important project. We can decide later what the future might be, but today let's make a decision on the request for these 19 lots and allow him to move forward. So at this point, I would accept, go ahead.
Eric, I want to run this by you. I'm going to make this motion, and I'm going to kind of tell you my reason for it.
Okay.
I want a motion to give you $6,000 per lot, which is $114,000.
Okay.
All right. And then at the end of the time period, if the balance is not used when this period is done with, that leaves us a balance of like $46,000. You're eligible for that $46,000. Is that legal, Teresa? I mean, to make that, but that only leaves you about $2,400 short per lot. But I was thinking $3,000 or $4,000 per lot, but looking at it, at least you're going to pull the utilities. It's worth $6,000 per lot. And I want to understand this only wouldn't be to you, but it would be anybody else came in and asked for all this. I wouldn't want to deprive you of a chance to come get some more of this for future projects the same way. I don't want somebody to come back in here and say, well, you let them have 60, 70% of it last year. I want it to be eligible to play the whole time. So that's my motion. If everybody understands it, it's $6,000 per lot. At the end of the time frame, if there's any balance remaining in the infill, you're able to apply for it for these 19 lots.
Well, I think we want to clarify that just a little bit more, and that would be the following. So, because based off of his time frame in building these homes, so he could come back with 6 more homes to apply for it. So it doesn't mean necessarily the $46,000 being applied to these 19 homes, but it would be, funds would still be available.
Certainly eligible to
And I
take
just
that
want to make sure we
46.
clarify
That's a good
that,
idea. That's very
because build them, they're sold, opens up an opportunity to build more, come back
So we
and,
would amend that to say he'd be eligible for the remaining $46,000 under your construction agency.
Okay, so I have a question on that. Is that $46,000, is that left in the pool for anybody in the program that wants to? Okay.
It's And I
So it's
kinda
kind of
got
a risk factor.
Yes, sir, it is
Yeah.
a risk, and it's $2,421 a lot is your risk factor.
It would mean, I guess also, so let's say somebody comes in and says, I want to buy 6 of these lots for Brenda Gunter to develop within this project. Those funds would be available for that person to build those 6 as well. So just to be clear, so there's no gray matter here.
So, okay, so we're not in the gray matter. Is the 46,000 left in the infield program? Or is it allotted to this subdivision to be used
left
based
in
on
the
kind of like
infield
what she
program.
just? Okay,
And
yeah,
so
so
people
it's
can apply for
anybody
that.
at that
You're
point.
right.
Yeah, got you. Just making sure.
Mayor, I'll second that motion.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Further public comment?
I don't know how you're going to document that.
Well, we're basically committing 6,000 per lot and period. That's really period. There's no other,
Right.
it's period. So because that leaves funds in the infill fund for other developers or for future development of this project by anybody. Is that clear?
So I'm going to sit with Eric on this one. At the end of the program, if those 46,000 or whatever balance is not used, he can come back and apply that for future houses or for this project or for these 19.
For anybody.
That's anybody.
Okay.
But also remember this, so because you own this development, right? You own
Yes,
it
ma'am.
all. Let's say come October 1, 2024, you decide to put in another 20. Having committed to this project this year doesn't limit your ability to come back next year for more. So it's not a one-time only per person. It is a commitment to these 19, period, today.
Without trying to sound greedy, just, there's this gray area that I'm trying to, based on what you're proposing.
Right.
Say we get the 6,000 for this development as of today, okay?
For these 19.
Yes,
Yes.
for these 19. That leaves the 46,000 that we were just discussing in the infill program. Let's say that we finish these 19 lots in a significant, a quick amount of time, and we're ready to build on those. Can we apply for the infill program on whatever houses we build, if we finish them in time, for the 5,000 per lot based on the 46,000 that is left in the?
If they're not one of those 19, yes.
Okay, that's what I was
So
asking, yeah.
The dollar
This-
amount today is these 19,
Gotcha.
period.
Just making
Okay.
sure.
Then if you come back in 3 months and say, I've sold these already and I'm ahead of my construction time frame, and I now am ready to move on to 10 more houses,
Okay,
you would be able to come back and apply for additional funds, but not on those 19 houses.
got you.
Teresa?
Yes. Well, we're only counting 18 lots, so I don't know. We want to make sure the map is correct because we are essentially phasing your project for you here.
Well, yeah, we ought to be correct on this
Let's
before
blame
we.
Erica.
It is
Let's blame
18.
Erica for this.
18.
Our computer can't count.
You can poke on that screen and it'll.
Light up.
Well, they're all numbered, so where do you
They're
just?
not necessarily always
not in
numbered
order.
correctly.
Oh, they're not in sequence, but
There's 18.
Good catch.
Okay, let the record show the lawyer got the map.
Good-
over
good
those
there.
lawyers get you in trouble every time,
Good
don't
catch.
they?
Wait,
Go, let's be real clear on this.
Let me go, this may be my error, let's see.
Surely not.
Oh,
Surely not, John.
Surely
Because
not.
Yeah, this lot 8 right there at the bottom should have been in the red area. So you
Ah.
see here, so there are
Oh,
19.
Eric.
Bring that line down there.
So
It's
we're just going
always
to need an
about the red
exhibit,
line.
so if this is the better exhibit to show what we're talking about, then let's use this instead of this. Okay. Okay. And I
Are
just
we
want to
all-
clarify one thing that was said earlier. I think there was a question asked that any of the money does need to be reimbursement for this project. He can't apply it to whatever houses. And I know to some extent that's just accounting, but if for some reason he comes back and whatever that total amount isn't, the 50% is less than what is left over, that he can only get the 50% under the program.
Well, what we have very clearly said was this money approved today applies only to these 19 houses.
Yes, ma'am.
Very clearly I've said that. Is there any confusion? Because I've said that 2 or 3 times. Got it.
So your question.
Mayor, I have a
Teresa.
question.
Yes, Lucy?
I wanted to just clarify. You said, so instead of giving him 5,000, we're allowing 6,000 per home. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That's the motion on the floor.
Okay.
The motion on the floor is for $6,000 per lot with a total number of 19 lots. That's the motion.
Did we answer your question, Teresa?
Are you clear on the remainder? Yes, Heather's clear, so.
Okay, okay.
We've had a motion and a second. Any public comment? With no public comment, we will take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Lucy?
Nay.
Motion passes 6-1.
Thank you, guys.
Gary, get building.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, do we want a break?
Please.
Let's take a break. Let's take 10 minutes. Does that work for everybody? 10-minute break?
It's good, Mayor.
Okay. Could everyone be seated and all of council be seated so we can call the meeting back to order? I'll wait till Tom comes back. All right, this meeting will be called back to order at 10:55 a.m. We will move on through the agenda, so we are at item E, which is consider approving a resolution electing to participate in tax abatement agreements pursuant to the Property Redevelopment and Tax Abatement Act, Chapter 312 of the Texas Tax Code. And Michael, you're on.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Michael Dane, Interim Economic Development Director. Items E and F go together, really. They're both related to a tax abatement program.
So item F is first reading and public hearing of an ordinance reauthorizing Article 1.09 taxation, Division 3 Uniform Tax Abatement Policy of the City Code of Ordinances, which expired November 15th, 2018.
A few weeks back, we brought to you a ratification of a COSA-DC item for a project. One of the things we discussed as part of that was the possibility of a tax abatement, which would be something. Would a tax abatement be something that council would consider? And as I recall, the direction was, let's jump through the hoops and let's see where the hoops take us. These are the beginnings, the first few hoops, the first couple of hoops to jump through. We are required to pass a resolution and then pass an ordinance related to the creation of a tax abatement program. So we've had this before. They automatically sunset in 2 years. This one's the one we had went through sunset. Now that we have a project which we might contemplate an abatement for, we need to consider reestablishing the program, and that's what we're talking about today, the beginnings of reestablishing that program. Typically in the past, what we've done is abated the increased value associated with a project. So if I buy a commercial property and it's on the books for $100 and I anticipate increasing its value on the tax rolls by $50 for an anticipated total of $150 in taxable value, we would typically only abate. In the past, I don't think we've ever tried to abate anything except that increased value. So we don't take a step backwards. We just lose that increased value for those first years associated with the abatement.
For what length of time?
Pardon me?
For what length of time? Because most tax abatement is done, because in year 2, it might go up another $25. In year 3, it might go up another whatever. So to be clear, is it one, as the example, if it went up $50 per acre on year 1, but it went up in year 2, appraised another $25 an acre, are we asking and suggesting that it only apply to the first year's increase in value, or for the increase in value over the length of time that the tax abatement applied, meaning 10 years, or less or more?
That is a fairly specific question, and I'm going to need help interpreting the proposed policy.
I can tell you that the abatement policy the ordinance language that is in the packet calls the abatement period is defined as 7 years, limited to no more than 5 tax years following the timely and successful completion of the project.
So the project, if they were to build a building on it, the abatement increase in value would not start until that building was completed. So if year 1, they bought the land, it's $100 an acre, the building was completed in 2 years, but by then the appraised value went up $175 per acre, it would only be based off a total completion of the building as well as the occupancy of that building. Is that correct?
Do you want to answer part of that? I'll tell you that that's correct for a period of 5 years after the completion of the building.
Bob Schneeman, Economic Development Project Manager.
When we have worked with this will be calculated by the appraisal district. So I believe the way they do it is they create a baseline evaluation, and then the increase above that, whether it's because of the project or potentially because of just a reappraisal, I believe it's going to that would get rebated.
Well, the
Abated,
the
sorry.
question is, okay, so one's the piece of land, value of the piece of land, the acreage, the square footage. Second is the valuation of that acreage once a building is constructed and the business is running. Chances are the increase in valuation of the land would be greater after a building is completed than prior to a building being put on that and being in use.
Yeah, that's correct. Now, the other thing that I believe we could do is you could put a cap on that. You could say an abatement up to, say, $5 million in value. So if it goes above the $5 million, then that would not be abated. I believe we could do that.
So I think the question that one would have on this is the following, is that based off a new tax law or legislative law, the law says today that we can only once valuations for the total city have gone up more than 3.5%, anything over and above that changes the dynamics. And so one property wouldn't substantially impact that 3.5%. So it wouldn't necessarily create a negative impact on the city by doing the tax abatement.
Well, it could create a fiscal impact to our ability to collect revenue. And Tina, I'm going to ask you to keep me on the straight and narrow. We are capped at 3.5% in growth on existing properties. But in the example I just gave you, that extra $50 is new value associated with new construction and would not be subject to that cap.
Yes,
And
in
so-
year one or until the building was completed, so that's correct.
And so we're allowed to get our 3.5% plus the value of new construction. And she's given me the nod. And so that's where our environment today is a little different than it used to be. That does eat into real revenue that is not subject to cap at this point.
I'm assuming that based off of this coming forward today, which is in 2023, and this expired in 2018, we have not had a request for abatement since 2018, since this is 2023.
That's my understanding, Mayor. If it's a tool in the toolbox, it comes up in discussions. If it comes up and it's not in the toolbox, then we just say, we don't have that ability at this point. However, if we had a big project come through and that was a key part of the project, we would still approach council and make sure you had the opportunity to approve what you thought was in the city's interest.
Questions for Michael? Yes, Tommy?
I'm not sure it's a question. It may be a question in the form of a comment. Regardless of whether we have this tool in place, if we don't have it in place and we have a project, we're going to have to go through the very same steps we are looking at taking today, correct?
That's my understanding. And that's exactly where we find ourselves. We have a project where they have contemplated the benefits of a tax abatement. We discussed that possibility here, and our understanding was y'all said, bring it back. Let's begin stepping through that process and see if it's something we're interested in. And so if this does not move forward, and next year or later this year, we have a project come through, we will still say, council, we don't have this program in place. In order to give an abatement to make this project go, or to put a package of benefits together for a prospect, we would still say, council, do you want us to jump through these hoops and create the program so that we can do this?
If the program is, if the steps have been properly gone through and approved by council, and you bring us a project for abatement, we have to say it's an up or down, yes or no vote on every single project that you would bring to us. So we would have the opportunity, if the program's in place, it seems to me it just eliminates some of the steps that we're having to go through if we want to even consider it. If it's in place, we still have the opportunity to say yes or no to any specific request for an abatement, correct?
That's my understanding, and I wouldn't want to bargain away council's authority to.
Brandon's got something to say.
Just to clarify the process, so there's essentially 6 steps. I mean, the first 2 steps we're doing today is the resolution saying you want to participate in abatement, and the second one is to create the criteria which we had previously adopted by ordinance, so it's just reauthorizing that same criteria. The next step, the third step, would be to actually create the zone where properties could apply for the abatement. That has to be done by ordinance to create the zone. So that would come back to you then. And then beyond that, then a property owner in that zone could apply and say, we want to have an abatement agreement. That agreement also has to come back to you. So you're essentially seeing it 2 more times. And then you'd approve that agreement, and then we have to give some reports or notices to the other taxing entities and the comptroller. So you'd see it again per project. And approval today doesn't mean you have to approve a project. The statute and our criteria makes clear it's totally discretionary to
Every
approve
single
a project.
request has
Right.
an up or down vote.
Right.
Gotcha.
Even if they meet the criteria, you can still say no at that point.
Thank you.
Very quickly, as a point of clarification, a zone can be an individual piece of property. So somebody comes in and they want a tax abatement, their property has to be declared, or declared is a good word, I guess, a reinvestment zone. But it can be just that piece of property. We don't have to say, okay, it's all of these properties. So just wanted to clarify that.
Is there a project out there as we speak that this applies to?
We have talked about the technology tower project,
Yeah.
and
Asking, so it's public.
We did, yeah.
And as from a practical standpoint, creating the zone, I think the way that they're working it through the county and the way we had anticipated working it is that we would create that zone each time we had a project. In other words, we wouldn't take a big broad brush and create a big zone. We would bring that zone designation for each project. And so you would have authority over that also. And so from a practical standpoint, this makes moving through that process quicker. However, we can still move that process if at some future point you want a project to go through that. Council still retains authority over those. You're not giving any autonomy to staff if we approve this.
A tax abatement, if we approved a tax abatement as a city, then the county could also approve a tax abatement. And then does the school district also approve a tax abatement, or is this a tax abatement on city level only?
We're working on city only. The county would have to approve theirs, and I am not an expert, and I do not have knowledge about the school district's ability to grant tax abatements.
Teresa, do you know if school districts do tax abatements?
I do not know. I know that their rules are different than ours, and we can do things that they can't do often, but I'm not sure. But again, today, we're just setting the rules for people to come to us. They're like, if you meet this criteria, then you can come to us and start having a conversation about whether or not we're going to abate your taxes. It's not making a decision for anybody today. That doesn't happen until multiple decisions down the road.
And I don't believe that school districts are allowed to do an abatement.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I'm in favor of both E and F. To me, it's just a tool that we give ourselves to work with someone that it may be beneficial. It may help us, I'll say, land a deal or assist an existing business. So I would move approval, if it's appropriate, I'd move approval for both items E and F.
I will ask first if there's any questions or comments from other city council members before I bring that motion to the floor. Lucy, do you have any questions or comments?
No, ma'am, I do not.
Okay. With that, then we have a motion to, can we lump E and F together, or do we need a motion on each?
Well, we would prefer 2 votes because somebody might approve one but not the other, and so
Okay.
it's just clearer that way. If you vote no, we don't know what you're voting no to, so.
So I'm going to say the following. There's a motion on the floor to consider item E, which is approving a resolution electing to participate in tax abatement agreements pursuant to the Property Redevelopment Tax Abatement Act, Chapter 312 of the Texas Tax Code. That is the only motion on the floor at this point in time.
Do you have a second?
I don't.
I'll second that.
Okay, Harry has seconded that motion. Any public comment? There's none, so we will take a vote. All those in favor of item E, say aye.
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 Motion passes 7-0. We will now move into item F, first reading and public hearing of an ordinance reauthorizing Article 1.09 Taxation Division 3 Uniform Tax Abatement Policy of the City Code of Ordinances, which expired November 15th, 2018. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Karen. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded with one finger up and one voice, so that would be Tom and Harry. And with that, there's 2 seconds. So any public comment? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes 7-0. We will now move into item G, consider approving a contract with the Historic Orient Santa Fe Depot Incorporated allocating $25,000 of hotel occupancy tax hot money receipts for eligible activities and authorizing the Assistant City Manager to negotiate and execute all related documents. Michael, you're on.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This item has to do with the lease of our facility, the depot, to the Rail Museum, and funding to be tied to that activity. We, pursuant to council's direction, we updated the lease terms and executed that update since our last meeting. What is before you now is an agreement to provide funding for the operation of that museum. The fundamentals of the agreement were pulled from another existing agreement and then modified, updated to reflect the historic preservation character of this agreement. The amount is proposed at $25,000, which is what had been previously discussed and brought back at your direction.
The eligible activities are what?
In this particular use, it's just the restoration and improvement and maintenance of that facility.
So the monies must be used for the restoration and preservation or improvement to the facility itself.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the only use that can be, these $25,000 can be used towards.
That's correct.
That's correct. All right. With that, are there questions for Michael? All right, may I have a motion for approval?
I move to approve.
Okay, I'm going to take Karen, I heard her first. I'm going to have Lucy be the second. Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 None opposed, motion passes 7-0. Item H, first public hearing and introduction of an ordinance amending the budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2023, and ending September 30th, 2024 for Historic Orient Santa Fe Depot. May I have a motion for amending the budget? So moved by Larry.
Second.
Second by Tom. All those, public comment? Let's take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. We'll move on to our closed session and there is none, so the item A that was on the closed session has been pulled. So we will move into the follow-up and administrative issues. Consider items discussed in executive session. If none, there are none. And now consider approving various board nominations. Designer and Historic Review Commission, Luke Brom, SMD 1, to first term ending September 2025. May I have that motion?
So moved.
So moved by Tommy.
Second.
Second by Tom. Any public comment on the nomination? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion
Aye.
passes 7-0. Item C, announcements and consideration for future agenda items. Seeing none, hearing none, may I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Tommy, a second by Tom. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes. Meeting is officially adjourned at 11:15 a.m. on this on this Tuesday, October the 3rd.